If I could give you one secret that almost guarantees you'll either stay average forever or rise beyond what you thought was possible, it would be this. The person you choose to admire will quietly become the person you become. And most people never choose. They just drift. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a hidden method that the greatest minds in history used like a weapon. Napoleon, Caesar, Alexander, Machiavelli, and if you apply it the right way, it will change how you think, how you act, and what you believe you're capable of. But here's the catch. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, because you'll realize you've been trained to study history in a way that makes you small. Picture this. A man sits alone, exiled, disgraced, broken in the way only politics can break you. Niccolo Machiavelli, once inside the halls of power, now reduced to silence, leans over ancient texts with the hunger of someone who has lost everything except his mind. His fingers trace words written by conquerors and kings centuries before his birth. Outside his window, the world has moved on. People have forgotten his name, but inside that dim room, something strange is happening. He's not merely reading, he is conversing. He is sitting with the dead as if they are living mentors. And those dead men, those voices from Rome and Greece, are teaching him secrets that will later reshape civilization. This isn't a man killing time with books. This is a man rebuilding himself from ruins. This is transformation, and it points to an idea so powerful, so uncomfortable, that modern education almost never teaches it properly. Here is the idea. History is not primarily driven by crowds, trends, and systems. History, when you look closely, is often driven by a small number of individuals who possess unusual force of will, unusual clarity, and unusual courage, and who reshape the world around them until reality bends to their vision. The uncomfortable part is what follows. If great individuals shape history, then greatness is not an illusion. Greatness is real. And that means the question isn't, does greatness exist? The question becomes, why aren't you pursuing it? Think about Napoleon Bonaparte. People talk about him as if he woke up one day with ambition in his blood and suddenly decided to conquer Europe. But there's a more revealing image, one that tells you how greatness is actually manufactured. Night after night, in a military tent lit by candlelight, surrounded by maps and the anxious silence of war, Napoleon read the campaigns of Julius Caesar. He studied each battle, each decision, each error, each moment of genius. He wasn't reading history the way students do, as information. He was reading it as a mirror. He wasn't trying to learn what Caesar did. He was trying to become the kind of mind that could do it. In a real sense, Napoleon was attempting something radical. He was attempting to resurrect Caesar inside his own skull. And here's the part that should hit you like a shock. Caesar himself did the same thing. Julius Caesar, the Roman general who would rupture the Republic and give birth to an empire, was obsessed with Alexander the Great. There's a story that Caesar wept when he saw a statue of Alexander, because at the same age Alexander had conquered the known world, while Caesar felt he had accomplished too little. That moment was not just envy, it was ignition. That comparison lit a fire that would eventually consume Rome. And Alexander slept with a copy of Homer's Iliad beneath his pillow. He didn't simply admire Achilles. He believed he was living in Achilles' shadow. And in some ways, he believed he was Achilles reborn. He modeled his tactics, his ambition, even his emotional life on a legendary warrior. So what you're seeing is a chain of greatness, a golden thread stretching back through time. Napoleon studies Caesar, Caesar studies Alexander, Alexander studies Achilles. Each man reaches backward, grabs a greater figure, and uses that figure as a template to build himself into something larger than his original limits. This is not coincidence, it is method. A Scottish philosopher in the 19th century gave a name to this phenomenon. Thomas Carlyle called it the great man theory of history, and it's controversial for a reason. In the modern world, we're trained to believe that individuals don't matter that much. We're told that history is made by impersonal forces: economics, social movements, systems, trends. Carlyle argued something that sounds almost offensive today, that the history of the world is, at bottom, the history of great individuals. Not because everyone else is worthless, but because certain people carry such concentrated influence that they become the axis around which events turn. Carlyle wrote with a kind of intensity that still cuts through centuries. He said, in essence, that universal history is the history of what great men have accomplished, that they were the leaders, the modelers, the creators of what the general mass of people then followed. This idea triggers resistance because it challenges a comforting belief that anyone could have done what these great individuals did, and therefore there's nothing special to admire. But ask yourself honestly, does that sound true? How many Roman legions equal one Julius Caesar? How many competent poets equal one Shakespeare? How many clever inventors equal one person whose creation reorganizes human life? You can't measure it. That's the point. Greatness is not just more effort. Greatness is a different kind of force. Now, this doesn't mean great individuals are perfect. In fact, the myth that greatness requires perfection is one of the biggest lies that keeps people small. Alexander drank and spiraled into paranoia. Caesar's ambition tore apart the republic he claimed to serve. Napoleon's ego led to catastrophe and mass death. Their flaws don't erase their greatness. If anything, their flaws make a terrifying point. You don't have to be flawless to change the world. You have to possess certain qualities in such abundance: vision, will, strategic intelligence, emotional endurance, that your presence reshapes reality. And this is where the story stops being history and starts being personal, because the ancient world understood something we have forgotten. Studying great individuals is not only educational, it is formative. It changes your character. It changes what you think is possible. It changes your inner standards. This is why so many of history's powerful figures obsessed over biographies. Plutarch, the Greek historian, wrote parallel lives comparing the virtues and vices of titans: Alexander, Caesar, Pericles, Cicero. But Plutarch wasn't writing to entertain scholars. He was writing a manual for self-transformation. His aim was simple: study what made great people great, copy what works, avoid what destroys. At around the same time, Suetonius wrote the 12 Caesars, slicing into the first emperors with surgical detail. These texts weren't gossip. They were case studies in power: how it rises, how it corrupts, how it collapses, and how some people wield it with frightening competence. If you want to understand why this matters, you need to realize something uncomfortable. Modern education often teaches you to study history like a museum. Look, don't touch, memorize dates, label movements, but the elite, the ambitious, and the truly dangerous have always studied history differently. They study it like a training ground, like a gym for the mind, like an arsenal. Now we return to Renaissance Florence. Machiavelli, stripped of everything he valued, power, position, respect, sits in exile. And in that darkness, he writes something that should be carved into the mind of anyone seeking excellence. He says there is nothing more precious to him than the knowledge of great men he gained by studying history. Notice what that means. For Machiavelli, studying greatness wasn't intellectual entertainment. It was survival. It was resurrection. It was a way to rebuild his inner world when his outer world collapsed. He understood a brutal truth: if you want to rule, study rulers. If you want to lead, study leaders. If you want to create, study creators. And he didn't mean admire them from a distance. He meant dissect them. Understand how they make decisions in war and crisis. Study why they win and why they lose. Not to praise them, but to extract method. And then Machiavelli adds something that separates passive admiration from active transformation. He says, above all, a person seeking power must do what some great men have done: model a leader who is praised and admired, and keep that example in mind at all times. That is the secret mechanism. It's not just reading about greatness. It's choosing a template, a living standard, a measuring stick you carry into every decision. Because whether you admit it or not, you are already imitating someone. Humans are mimics. We mirror, we absorb. We copy the behavior, tone, ambitions, and even fears of the people around us. The tragedy is that most people imitate mediocrity because mediocrity is what surrounds them. They model themselves on whoever is nearby, whoever is popular, whoever is convenient, whoever society places in front of them. That's how ordinary lives are produced, not through choice, but through drift. But Machiavelli is saying something radical. If imitation is inevitable, then choose the right target. Choose greatness consciously. Even if you never reach the full height of your hero, you'll rise far above where you would have landed aiming at nothing. Aim for the stars, land on the moon. That is infinitely better than staying in the dirt. This is why your choice of heroes may be the most important decision you ever make. It sets your ceiling. It shapes what you consider acceptable. It determines what skills you pursue, what habits you form, what kind of courage you develop, and what kind of future you unconsciously build. And somewhere along the way, we stopped teaching this. Many of you were never taught the great man theory. Instead, you were fed a competing narrative: history from below, social history, the idea that exceptional individuals don't really matter, that they're mostly products of circumstances, lucky beneficiaries of forces beyond their control. Herbert Spencer attacked Carlyle directly and argued that before a great man can remake society, society must first make him. This view evolved into a style of history that focuses on movements and masses rather than individuals, and it has value, but it also has a hidden cost. It leaves you with no one to become. Because if leaders are merely interchangeable figureheads, then excellence becomes suspicious. If greatness is either an illusion or a crime, then the safest path is to be average. And that message seeps into your bones without you noticing. It tells you, don't aim too high, don't admire too strongly, don't idolize excellence, don't study giants, stay in the crowd, stay safe, stay small. But the human soul does not thrive on smallness. It decays there. You were built to admire something. You were built to pursue something. The only question is what you will aim at. The Great Man lens says greatness is real, achievable in part, and worth striving for. But we need nuance, because some people misunderstand this and slide into worship. Carlyle sometimes spoke of great men in almost religious terms, like they were divine lights. We don't need that. We don't need to pretend any human being is morally perfect. We don't need to copy everything about them. We need something more sophisticated. We need to treat great figures as teachers of capability. A person can be a brilliant speaker and use that gift for evil. That doesn't mean we should avoid becoming great speakers. It means we should develop that skill and use it for good. Many military geniuses had questionable motives. That doesn't mean their strategic thinking has no lessons. It means we take the method, not the moral corruption. We extract the technique and reject the poison. This is mature admiration. This is intelligent imitation. So let's make this practical, because if this stays abstract, it becomes entertainment and nothing else. Here's the technique, the exact technique hidden inside Machiavelli's advice, and it works because it changes your inner standards. First, choose a hero not based on popularity, but based on the specific qualities you want to develop. Do you want courage under pressure? Choose someone known for it. Do you want strategic thinking? Choose someone who shaped outcomes through strategy. Do you want intellectual mastery? Choose someone who built systems of thought. Your hero must match your desired traits, not your desire for comfort. Second, stop studying them like trivia. Don't collect facts, collect patterns. When did they act fast and when did they wait? What did they do when confused? How did they handle betrayal? What did they value most? What did they refuse to tolerate? What was their relationship with risk? What habits did they repeat? You're not studying a person, you're studying a decision-making engine. Third, build a hero lens you apply daily. This is the part most people skip. Before a difficult decision, ask yourself, what would my model do here and why? Then ask, what would they avoid? This creates a form of internal mentorship. Over time, your mind starts to anticipate their standards. You begin to feel discomfort when you act below the line. That discomfort is growth. That discomfort is the death of your old self. Fourth, and this is crucial, do not choose a hero you can't challenge. If your hero becomes a god, you become a servant. If your hero becomes a teacher, you become a student who eventually surpasses the lesson. You study them deeply enough to see both virtues and vices. You copy the strengths. You guard against the weaknesses. That's how you rise without inheriting their tragedy. This is exactly what Plutarch was doing. He wasn't telling you to worship Caesar or Alexander. He was showing you what works and what destroys. The goal is not to become a copy. The goal is to become a more powerful version of yourself by borrowing proven structures of excellence. Genius leaves footprints. Greatness leaves patterns. The only question is whether you're willing to follow them. Now ask the question that should haunt you in a productive way. Who is your hero? Who have you chosen as your model? Have you consciously selected someone who embodies the qualities you want, or have you passively absorbed whoever the world placed in front of you? Because make no mistake, you are imitating someone right now. You're being shaped by example, by standards, by the invisible gravity of admiration. The only choice you have is whether that influence is exceptional or average. Most people never make this choice intentionally. They let culture choose for them. They let algorithms choose for them. They let friends choose for them. They let trends choose for them. And then they wonder why their life feels directionless. But direction comes from standards, and standards come from models. Napoleon studied Caesar. Caesar studied Alexander. Alexander studied Achilles. Each one climbed a ladder made of other men's excellence and then became a rung on the ladder for those who came after. That chain doesn't end in the past. It continues now. It's waiting for you. The great figures of history are not just names in textbooks. They are minds across time offering you something priceless. Tested principles, hard lessons, methods forged under pressure. But the final step is yours, because this isn't freely given by schools or institutions. You have to choose it. You have to seek it. You have to treat history not as a museum, but as a forge. Not as information, but as transformation. So here's the challenge, and I want you to take it seriously. In the next 24 hours, choose one hero, one, based on the qualities you want most. Write their name down. Then write 3 traits you admire. Then do the simplest, most powerful thing you can do. Read one real account of how they handled a crisis, not a motivational quote, a real moment, a decision under pressure. Then ask yourself honestly, what would change in my life if I held myself to that standard? Because your future isn't built by your wishes, it's built by your standards. And your standards are shaped by who you admire. Drop a comment and tell me who your hero is and why. Not because comments matter, because clarity matters. The moment you name your model, you reveal your direction. And once you choose intentionally, you stop drifting, you start building. Choose wisely. Choose greatly. Your future self is watching, and whether you realize it or not, you are becoming someone every day. The only question is, will that someone be an accident or a masterpiece?